I'm going to discuss and demonstrate the time study workflows in Assembly Planner. Even if you're familiar with the previous version of Assembly Planner, this will be a new workflow for you. In Assembly Planner, as discussed in the process authoring video, there are routings, operations, and activities. Activities represent work tasks, so I'm going to use the word activity and task interchangeably. Typically, when an observed time study is performed, multiple tasks are observed and timed. For now, let's say we're performing a time study on all of the work in one station. This work would include many tasks. By summing the time of each observed task, we can get the total work content for the station. If you're performing a calculated study using a predetermined time standard, you're also trying to capture times for multiple tasks. If you're familiar with predetermined time standards, you know there are multiple elements that make up a task. For example, your task may be to install a bolt. Some elements that make up that task may be reach, grasp, turn, walk, position, and twist. By defining smaller elements that make up each task, you can roll up standard element times to get a task time. Once again, by summing the time of each calculated task, we can get the total work content for the station. Now we'll go through an example. Let's focus on observed time studies first. You can perform observed time studies from the Time Study module or from the Activity Time tab in Assembly Planner. Where you do so depends on the level of your study. If you have a video of multiple tasks in a station and want to capture observed times for each of those tasks, you want to use the Time Study module. If you have a video of a single task and want to capture observed times for the elements of that task, you want to use the Activity Time tab. I'll start with a video of work at a station. I'm going to go to the Time Study module and open up a new study. I'll give it a name. Now I'll go to the Observed Times tab and load the video that I'll be studying. Okay. Now this process is already documented in the process database, so I can right-click in the tasks table and select Import Activities. I can search for the routing and the operation that I'm studying. And select all of the activities that are documented in that operation. At this point, I would complete my time study. For details on how to perform a time study, please watch our tutorial videos. For now, I'm going to open another study that I've already completed using the same video and tasks. I'm going to go to Actions and Apply Time Study. You want to make sure that you have the operation you're working with already checked out. What I'm doing at this point is taking the times that I've observed and now sending them back to the database based on the operation where these activities exist. So I'll search for my operation, and that's within a routing. And I'll select Replace because at this point I want to clear out any standard times that exist right now. And I'll click Apply. Okay. Now I can go back to the database and find that operation. So I'll open up this 6th operation, and now I can see all of my tasks and all of the observed times that I found in my time study. I could go to the Operation Time tab and click Roll Up. And this gives me the total work content for this operation based on my observation times. If I want to go into further detail, now I can open up one of the activities and go to its Time tab. I'll click on the Observe Time radio button, and now I see that when I applied my time study, it also sent the video clip for that task that I observed. So now I only see the 0.1 minutes of that whole video operation. Now I can watch this particular activity and list its elements and capture times for individual elements. The sum of these elements will still equal the total time of the activity. So your observed time for the activity won't change, but you will be able to define specific element times. By the way, if your videos are already clipped for each activity, you can load the video directly in this control by clicking Add and capture the times of the elements to get an activity time. And at this point, we've covered the workflow for the observed time studies. Let's move to calculated studies. While we're still in the activity times tab, we'll start here. If I click on the calculated time radio button, I can open a time standard and begin listing the elements of this activity. Notice that since I already performed the observed time study for this activity in the time study module, I can also watch the activity being performed to make sure that all the elements are documented as was performed in the video. I'll go through and add a few elements, and once all of my elements have been documented, I can click Calculate. And now I have a standard time for this activity based on the predetermined time standards. I could then return to the operation I'm studying, select the next tab, activity, and perform these same steps. You'll note here that since I calculated the time based on the standard, this time has been added to this activity. Now, the workflow for calculated studies is a bit more flexible than it is for observed studies. I recommend choosing to either perform your calculated studies, as I just explained, within the Activity Time tab, or as I'm about to explain, using the Time Study module. For simplicity's sake, don't try to go back and forth until you get comfortable with the whole system. Let's take another look at the Time Study module. Now I can go to the Calculated Time tab and see the list of tasks that I had previously imported for the observed study. I can click on each activity and list the elements of each. Okay, this is a similar control to what's in the Activity Time tab. And again, I'm documenting the elements to get an activity task time. When I save, I can expand this table on the left and see the standard time has been calculated based on this sum of the element times. If I wanted to, I could apply my time study again, this time using a merge, so that my previous observed times would remain, and my new calculated study would be added. I'll go ahead and open up a previously completed study for calculated and do the apply. Okay, if I return to one of my activities, and reopen the operation, I can see now that all of my calculated time studies have been applied and saved to the database. So just remember, when you're performing an observed time study, if you want to capture times for tasks, use the time study module. If you want to capture times for elements, use the activity time. When you're performing a calculated study, since you are always capturing times for tasks based on elements, you can use either the time study module or the activity time tab.